hello to our listeners in 2022. It's a brand new year, and we're back with a brand new episode of Mic'd Up with Mars. Last January, Affle's Mars team started this podcast with the aim of bringing unique voices from our industry for our clients, partners, friends, and readers. Today, the podcast is heard by listeners from over 150 cities and 30 countries. As we continue to engage with experts from across the globe, we have a special episode. It's our 2-in-1 pack. If you tuned into us last week, you would have heard from Affle's Anuj Kumar. In this episode, we are bringing to you the tech side of Affle. Please welcome Charles Yong, Chief Architect and CTO at Affle. He is joined in discussion with Ankit Rawal, Senior Director, Sales and Marketing.
Welcome, Charles, to our latest edition of Mic'd Up with Mars. And incidentally, Mic'd Up turns a year old today in January. So it's been almost 12 months. We've been talking to industry veterans, to partners across the globe, and talking about Mars and users. Kick-started this, right? This whole decade was called a techade, where every company, whether you are in the business of financial services, healthcare, education, is a tech company and happens to a certain vertical. And that's where we have also seen the massive growth of what we call the EFGH category. And one of the other buzzword, if I reflect from a 2021 lens, has been Web3 or Metaverse, which is nothing but like a whiteboard of technologies like AR, VR, gaming, crypto, and more. So maybe this is a good segue to start our mic'd up session with you, Charles, where you can reflect a little bit on what were some of the key trends for 2021, and more importantly, what do you see some of those will play out for 2022?
As for the metaverse, I totally agree that it's on the cusp of becoming something really huge. For me though, the buzzwords will be artificial intelligence, machine learning, and connected devices. AI and ML continues to be the buzzwords and currently outpacing even the Moore's law in terms of growth. This is because of three things: compute power, algorithms, and I consider combined knowledge. Firstly, compute power doubles every 18 months, according to Moore's law, and still continues to follow that trend today. Secondly, there are huge improvements in learning systems, such as AutoML, language processing, vision processing, and numerous different AI modeling systems. Third will be combined knowledge. Data is also growing at an exponential rate, and with more data, AI systems perform much better. Also, multimodal AI, where you have more than one model running at the same time, normally layered on top of each other. Affle also has numerous models, such as analyzing good traffic, non-human traffic, ideal users, best time, best price, interest, and so forth. This helps us move from doing simple categorization to become more predictive and even serendipitous in sending messages at the right time, place, and device for the user to consume. Connected devices is yet another buzzword. More and more devices are being connected than ever before. Last year alone, there were 31 billion new connected devices around the world. CES a few weeks ago showed a multitude of devices, from Wi-Fi lights that can detect people falling down, smart glasses, connected TVs, to a whole slew of connected robots. Not to mention the 1.5 billion cars in the world that will slowly become connected over the years. Each one of this adding to more data in the world and helping improving AI and ML models. These two exciting technologies, I'm totally all in embracing these technologies, both from a consumer perspective and also the back-end technologies, especially the AI that brings intelligence to these devices.
Interesting. No, absolutely. I think AI is the new electricity, and the use cases for machine learning algorithms for prediction, for segmentation, clustering, etc. is definitely going to even accelerate in the coming year in 2022. One of the other interesting things which happened, especially in our industry, in the ad tech world, was the ATT framework, which Apple was supposed to launch in early 2021. Then it got delayed, and then it was forecasted as an apocalyptic event in our industry. But again, the ATT code did roll out in April, and there were some tremors, I will say, in June and July. But as we closed 2021, the things were quite normal, right? And measurement was happening. So curious, now that the dust has settled, how do you see 2022 and beyond panning out for IDFA and any other such privacy controls, whether it is the Google cookie, which will hopefully acquire in 2023? So how do you see this panning out this year and beyond?
Thanks, Ankit. Apple has been watching out for this even before the announcement of iOS 14 during the WWDC, the Worldwide Developer Conference by Apple in 2020. In typical Apple style, this was due to be launched with the advent of the new phone. However, it was delayed from being in like September, October, November to April the following year. During this time, however, Apple was able to focus our energies on exploring different modeling, how to actually do treatments, etc. for the devices, especially with the app tracking, transparency ecosystem. Then, after the launch of the Apple Store Kit ad network, which we call SCAN, in 2021, the impending apocalypse that you mentioned ended up being quite positive for Apple. Apple was able to grow our business and our conversion rates. Then for the rest of the year, we continued to improve our modeling for ATT in our AI and ML, not just in handling the privacy portions of ATT, but also in handling some of the trickiness that ATT brings. For example, doing ABN optimizations for the only 100 campaign ID limits that you can have for callbacks from Apple. And generally these are given more than 24 hours later. Hence, our modeling has to be smarter and sharper, and tying this in to our existing models. For example, our targeting, our traffic analysis, and ensuring that we can enable transfer learning when we have limited knowledge about the user. All in all, I feel that Affle tries when there's difficulty and change, and we're looking out for the next WWDC shortly, in the next WWDC in June this year. On other privacy concerns like third-party cookies that Google is deprecating at the end of next year, there are already browsers that have done so, like Safari has been doing this since 2 years ago in 2020. While Affle's traffic is largely mobile and not cookie-based, there are only a few ways that cookie data can go. People are already doing workarounds by making it first-party, which is what Facebook is doing. Of course, you can also use scripts and pixel tracking. Those are unaffected by third-party cookie blocking. This will be interesting to see how this pans out over the next couple of years.
No, absolutely. And I think if I zoom out a little bit and further draw parallels, right? Like what's really happening in the last several years, whether it started with GDPR or CCP, or here in India, data protection law, that in general, whether it is the regulators, the consumers are becoming really, really conscious about privacy and how they share their information, how it is collected and used for monetization, either through ads or personalization. So I think one of the big challenge which a lot of technology vendors in this space are grappling is how do you address this privacy first world, whether it is the regulators or the consumers or even the marketers. So curious, how is Affle and Affle Mass and its products and services looking to go back to the drawing board and reassess this change in context vis-a-vis privacy?
Thanks, Ankit. Affle has always taken data seriously, especially privacy. Each year we undergo IT audits. We also are accredited by IMDA in 2017 and 2 more times after that. What is important about what IMDA provides for Affle is that it provides an endorsement that our systems can go into a government environment where sensitive data has been handled. The process actually involves both a financial and technological perspective. They look at how we handle our data from beginning to end, looking at our processes and our governance so that we can host our systems in a government environment where it could be handling sensitive data. Moreover, Affle has acquired numerous entities over the years, each one adding a different governance and process styles and improving our ability to handle privacy, risk mitigation, risk treatment, and handling privacy storage as well. One of such entity is the acquisition that we made of MetaSmart in 2020, headquartered in Spain, and hence obviously handling GDPR regulations, which is one of the strictest in the world even today. Affle in Singapore is also undergoing DPTM, which stands for Data Protection Trademark, which adds another level of privacy control and governance to Affle.
Got it. It's quite heartening to know that we really don't collect any PII information, personally identified information, and we respect that balance of being contextual yet not being creepy. So I agree, and I think our products and solutions, whether it's an MDMP, etc., are trying to respect that. And maybe can you share a little bit about the MFAST solution also, which we use extensively at Mars, which is really, in very simple terms, weeding out bad data and beating the ad fraud, which is there in rampant in this industry. So a little bit about our MFAST ad fraud detection tool.
Thanks, Ankit. Definitely removing non-human traffic, as we call it, is vital from our systems from several points of view. One is that we don't want to have non-human traffic within our system, but actually passing non-human traffic information to our system also exacerbates the problems down the line. If you're having bad data into our modelings, we will actually get bad predictions in the future. So this is a core interest of ours, and we do this through 25 reason codes, which ranges from IP analysis to like the time it actually takes for someone to actually make an install. Is that reasonable? And also using behavioral analysis that's there. So how do we actually do this? Some of the things that we actually do obviously is high, low triggers. It's there. I mean, if it's not feasible that something happens, we will put a high trigger and a low trigger to that. Another could be like windowed. For example, if you're getting too many requests coming in from the same IP address within a certain period of time, that's unreasonable. And sometimes you see peaks and troughs when it comes to traffic coming in with this regard. Needs to be statistical based upon, usual behavior is something like, peaking, or, it's not possible that we have that many users of a particular category coming in at a particular time. Those things will be treated as fraud. And most importantly, we look at behavioral analysis. That's there. What are the behavior of people? Is it really, truly a correct behavior? We're constantly improving our systems through training and validating our systems. We can check, okay, are these people, truly valuable or, not valuable at all? If you get a lot of non-valuable users, we'll obviously question it and drill deeper down to actually find these patterns of non-human traffic occur.
Interesting. No, I agree. And again, I think using a lot of AI, as you mentioned, that's a very important technological trend, and we are using it in our products and our offerings is quite interesting and definitely cutting edge. Maybe this is a perfect segue to the next section of what we wanted to discuss with you. And since you are a technology evangelist within the organization, a thought leader, curious what all other technology you think we need to watch out for. And as I mentioned in the beginning, there was a lot of buzz around crypto, NFTs, AR, VR. So how do you see that playing out in 2022 and beyond?
Definitely, I think it's a toss-up between VRs and NFTs, non-fungible tokens. I think there's actually a symbiotic relationship with it as well. With VRs, I think that's going to be also a buzzword that we're going to see with many devices being released. Obviously, there's the Facebook Oculus, HTC, Microsoft, Sony, all have their own VR devices out there. VR has always been the top of the hype curve, but I think it's going to move into mainstream. It tripled its year-on-year growth last year, this despite a chip shortage in the world. There's also a lot of rumors coming up, like Apple releasing their own special device, and we all know that when Apple comes in, once the environment is mature. So I think it's something that we should definitely watch out for. Besides that, VR happens in a world, and I think Meta has announced this through Facebook, that we're going to see these metaverses coming up. Disney has also announced their own metaverse, and hopefully there will be many more metaverses out there we can enjoy and play around with. And how I see this as a symbiotic relationship with NFTs is that I think NFTs is now heavily in gaming and all sorts of virtual assets. And I think NFTs will play a big role, in VRs, in that you will have objects and items, etc. in VR space that will be uniquely tied to the individual. Well, it'll be interesting to see how these assets that you may have, how that can be interoperable within the worlds. Facebook has also mentioned that they're going to keep these assets transportable between things like game providers. NFTs is obviously an extension of this, and it'll be nice to see how NFTs are going to look in the future. Last year already, you've got people like Nike, Disney, Twitter, all announced that they're going to be in the NFT game. Let's hope that these will be transportable across these huge platforms and spur on a new digital economy and a new space altogether.
No, absolutely. I think if I reflect upon, and luckily I've also been in the industry for some time, if I go back in the early to mid 90s, right, and if I have to put a whiteboard, and at that time I would put things like internet, multimedia, interactivity, I would talk about maybe SMTP, HTTP kind of layers. Nobody knew that how internet would look like, and now we saw what we see with social media platforms of Google, Amazon, Uber, Airbnb kind of services. But I think that feeling is there that we are in that inflection point where a lot of these things you mentioned, whether it is NFT, crypto, AR, VR, decentralization, interoperability, will all be very interesting. Internet Web 1, which was more the likes of, say, Yahoo and AOL, which was more consumption-led, moved to something called Web 2, which is where we had the social media platforms, it was cloud-related, etc. And I think the Web 3 version will be more AI-driven, would be on these blockchains, it would be decentralized, etc. So it will happen. It's the question of now versus whether, and you're right, like we need to be wary of this wild west of whose version of the metaverse would be happening, whether it is Disney or Facebook or Microsoft or a completely different one. But I think definitely exciting times and a very important point to look how this thing spans out. Maybe as we come close to the episode, I will just make it zoom in and drill down a little bit about you personally, and our listeners would love to know a little bit more about you. So maybe we'll segue to that segment of the podcast. And one of the questions which a lot of listeners would be willing to understand is, what is your secret recipe? What is your secret ingredient to build great products? And you've been with Affle for the last 15 plus years. You've built some great products, technology. So what is your secret sauce?
So I think the secret sauce of building great products is having the right team. And I think having a talented, innovative team is critical to actually make this happen. Besides innovation, I think having a growth mindset is essential. It's even a baseline that we look for now. Besides this, most important is having grit. Angela Duckworth's book called Having the Power of Passion and the Perseverance to Push Hard Until We Solve Our Problems is most important. For me, grit stands for guts, resilience, initiative, and tenacity. Guts means having a stand, having a hypothesis, putting your neck out there to say, hey, look, I'm going to try and think that this is the right thing to do. Resilience, to persevere when things go wrong, getting up and trying again even harder. Initiative is to take the initiative to take the first step in the first place. And tenacity, to keep on enduring until things are done. So all in all, what makes a great product is having a talented, innovative team, all with a growth mindset, and underlying all of this is having grit.
Absolutely. Grit, guts, resilience, initiative, and tenacity. Interesting. Curious, any particular quote or any particular message do you live by, which has been like your North Star for the last few years and decades?
Wow, there's a lot of quotes that I like to quote. However, one that comes to mind is someone by John C. Maxwell in his book, 15 Infallible Laws of Growth, where it says, change for the sake of change will give you whiplash. Change before you have to gives you a big win, but it's difficult to do. Change when you have to gives you a win. Change after you have to leads to a loss. Refusing to change is death to your potential. Change is inevitable in life, but choosing the right timing and how to actually do it is most important and is sometimes the difference between success and failure.
Funnily, Charles, we had a similar question for Anuj Kumar, as you know, who's our CRO and Chief Operating Officer, and he also mentioned a quote around change. So I think it really gives a lot of, I'll say, confidence among the rest of the team that all our tech or business leaders are so particular about change and how to continuously change. And I think we've seen that in our industry in the last 15 years. As things change, as things evolve, we have to change. And if we are on top of a game and changing either before time or definitely when the time is right, we will definitely win, right? And I think the whole ATT change, and as you were pointing out that it actually turned out very well for us, is again a perfect example of that, how we are on top of a game. When things change, we change accordingly and evolve. Great. I think just one last question before we let you go. I know you're a busy person. Is that, say, in an alternate universe, what would you want to be?
Well, I really truly love what I do. Okay, being in tech and neck deep in it with all the biggest changes that are happening all around me. That's like just superb. However, if I was able to reset my life from doing what I did previously, which was electrical engineering and computer science, I wouldn't mind trying something in 3D space. I have 2 girls in art school, and seeing the technology improve in just even the last 2 years is incredible. What you can actually do there. So we've played around with 3D printing, 3D modeling, 3D animations, creation of characters, animating, characters, and being able to print it out and visualizing it in your hands. I think that's incredible. And I think that's something that is of the future. I feel that the future of work will be people that are more creative than doing monotonous tasks that could be automated through RPA and AI and ML. And it's an interesting space to be in. And I think anyone that is creative and innovative in what they do will really stand out in this world today.
No, interesting. So again, thanks, Charles. It was a scintillating discussion, and definitely our audience would love it to hear from you and what are the new tech things happening and how we are on top of our game to ensure that we adapt and we evolve to those changes and sometimes lead many of these changes. Thanks again, Charles, for coming on Mic'd Up with Mars. It's an interesting platform to share what's happening in the ad tech industry, overall technology. So thanks again spending time for us today.
That's all from us from our 2-in-1 pack. Thank you to our guests for joining us, and thanks to our listeners who have continued to tune in to Mic'd Up with Mars over the past year. We have some great conversations lined up in 2022 with the best experts from the world of ad tech. Stay tuned. Signing off.